The title of this video is short and I think somewhat controversial. How is it possible that our beloved heroine is also the villain? How does this work with the laws of cause and effect? We will not enter the territory of paradox and plot holes. All these questions will be answered and we will finally understand what Jesse means that this world is much bigger and much stranger. I will structure the video in such a way that we will review the background of the main characters of the game, Trench, Dylan and Jesse. As we progress, we will recap the most important events in the lives of Jesse and Dylan, as well as the relationship with the board. Jesse Faden is presented to us as a survivor of the ordinary AWE, together with his brother Dylan. Both have an encounter with an entity called Han, to which Jesse calls Polaris. Jesse comments that she burned the slides but left one intact, the one of Polaris. At this point the contradictions begin.
Jessie Faden is presented to us as a survivor of the Ordinary All, together with her brother Dylan. Both have an encounter with an entity called Hand, to which Jessie calls Polaris. Jessie comments that she burned the slides but left one intact, the one of Polaris. At this point, the contradictions begin. Jessie claims that there were 9 slides, but his brother claims that there were actually 8 slides. But the Bureau recovered only 6 burned slides and only one intact, which they called Slidescape 36. Here, an interesting exercise with this numbering. 3 plus 6 gives a total of 9. So I'm more inclined to the version that there were actually 9. I do not see any other reason why this slide was given the number 36.
I'm Dr. Casper Darling, and this is my final message. It's not the end. But after this, I won't. I exposed myself to heroine resonance fully. It's changing me. I've seen. I've been shown so much. Slidescape 36 was where heroine stopped the spread of another. It's terrifying. It really is. It's another source of resonance. Trench was exposed to this other. It will now spread. I've done everything I can to stop the heroine resonance amplifiers. I don't know if it'll make a difference. I won't be here when it happens. I should have told Emily more. I'm being sent one more lesson. Something wonderful, I think.
But there is another. The number 9 surprisingly mentions the 9th Sephira Yesod, who literally means the foundation, the same name of the place where the nail is found, buried and forgotten at the crossroads, curiously surrounded by red sand. This being, who represents the connection between the great spiritual realms and the material world, is the foundation of the tree of life in the Jewish Kabbalah, as is the nail. Being the connection between the astral plane and the oldest house, Yesod is a channel of communication, a transmitter, translates these spiritual energies to be understood by the human who relates to this thing. Practically, that is the function of the Black Pyramid / the board. And the function of the director is to be a receptacle of that energy, so as to have an outlet and interact with the world around him. On Slidescape 36, Hedron Hand are supposed to stop the hiss, but the strange thing is that when Trench explores Slidescape 36, something enters his ear, a sound. This was the cause of Trench's infection, of his paranoia, exactly the same slide in which Jesse Dylan acquired their powers. Slidescape 36 is represented as a desolate plain of pure red sand. The red color is representative of Jesse, of his very particular red hair, and to some extent of the restrained anger that we see peeking to the surface, mainly when he thinks of his brother, of having stayed so many years away from his younger brother. In addition to the red sand, there is a formation of 5 pillars in the distance, like crude outstretched fingers.
The projected image from each slide is a physical portal into another dimension. Only one slide remains. Dylan's sister burned the rest in ordinary before we could intercept. The text on it, color slide film, this side towards screen, and the number 36. The topography of Slidescape 36 bears deep wave marks. On the slide and in the distance, there's a formation of 5 pillars like crude, outstretched fingers. There were casualties on our first expedition. Communication is an issue. There is no sound there, as if you've gone deaf, and radios don't work. Correction, a resonance from an unknown source in part within the range of audible frequency. It acts in unpredictable ways, causing feedback loops that can tear you apart. Trench insists he heard something else. It made his ears bleed. Our equipment found no evidence of anything beyond the primary resonance. Trench's medical tests show nothing amiss.
Trying to grasp something in the distance. A possibly far-fetched idea is that these pillars represent the idea of losing everything, signifying Jesse's desperation to reach out to his brother, to be together again. As time slips through those fingers, an image Trench himself had of these figures in the distance.
So I followed my own orders. Northmore hated my guts for that. But things change when you become director. You suddenly see this dark void for the horror show it truly is, filled with screaming fear we pretend to control. Sand leaks through my fingers. The roses I pruned in the garden back when I still had a family, all dead. Heat escapes my body. My thoughts are scattered. The universe keeps expanding. I can't keep up with it alone.
Going into the slide, we locate a being of considerable mass, a catalyst of a resonance, and the pillars are located in this same place. The pillars that form the hand are related to the nail found in the foundation. If we join the pyramid and the nail, what is formed is a pillar, practically identical to those observed in the slide. In the DLC Night Springs, in the episode titled Timebreaker, written by Alan Wake, we are given another clue about the origin of Hedron. But first, we must remember that the stories that Alan writes are based on real-world events, but also echoes about events that have happened in another place or at another time, or that are about to happen. Alan's visions transcend time and space. Their stories are written with half-truths, so as to make the parts that are not real become real. With this in mind, Alan saw events from Control, from the story of Dylan and Jesse, the board, and possibly beyond. In the episode, we learn the following.
have witnessed a case of mistaken identity. But in the vastness of the multiverse, with an endless number of versions of ourselves, what is identity anyway? Can there be more than one master of many worlds? Or did our hero take a wrong turn somewhere along the way? Was this particular journey precisely what was needed to make him the one he was meant to become? One thing is certain. I am your host, the one and only Warland Boar. And this is Night Springs.
In few words, Timebreaker encounters a polyhedral-shaped alien. The alien is taken to the Wreck headquarters. Breaker's personal war against the Master of Many Worlds lead him to allow this alien to possess him. This happens with the sensation of being embraced by fire, and in the end, time and this being destroy the entire world, leaving only dunes being moved by resonance, a loop. This, I believe, applies to Jesse, possibly from another dimension, or possibly in the future. After all, physicists, when they talk about time, talk as if they were planes of existence, tangible, as in the movie Interstellar. Jesse's future dimension is unveiled in this chapter. So I think there is a relationship between Hand and the board. If in fact Slidescape 36 refers to the original number of slides, they formed the number 9, the number of the Sephiroth Yesod. That Jesse meets Polaris in the dumpster, together with Dylan, was not a coincidence. As well as finding the project, already from that moment, she was already being signed as a possible candidate for the role of director. But in the end, the FBC staff chooses Dylan, which causes a conflict in the fate of these brothers, a conflict that would have to be resolved years later, in 2019. This conflict had its origin in the failure of Dylan as P6. This failure caused enormous stress in Trench, who found himself unable to get new candidates, worried that a crisis like that of Northmore wouldn't happen again. And in itself, the totality of his work dragged him into a life of suffering. The loss of his family with the addition of being infected by the resonance caused the departure of the HISS, a crisis that the bastards of the board did not try to avoid in any way.
After Northmore stepped down, I doubled every effort to find new prime candidates. There was no one but me. That wasn't good enough. I pushed hard. I never wanted the Bureau to end up in that situation again. The Bureau needs a director. Always. When my time reaches an end, I want more options on the table. Then, P6. Dylan Faden. He fell into our arms. No parents. They're gone. Casualties of an AWE. The boy has exceptional talent. The oldest house will be his home. We'll build him from the ground up. He'll be trained and taken care of. Darling can be in charge of this project. I can't. I'll stay away. I will not fail the boy like I failed my own family. My daughter and my wife. We weren't careful enough back then. Something came home with me. I took work home. My Susanna got sick. When I realized my mistake, I wanted to bring her here for Darling to do what he could. Kate flat out refused. Civilian doctors treated our daughter, but they didn't have a clue. She died. Kate left me. Same old story. That was a long time ago. The Bureau is all I have now. And the prime candidates are our future. There are two, P6 and P7. We're spoiled for choice.
The funny thing is that the service weapon is practically a Russian roulette. Trench shoots himself at a very opportune moment, or maybe was the board, just as Jesse arrives at the office. Why not before?
Shit. Shit. You want me to pick it up? The murder weapon? Really? Something's outside. Was coming here a mistake? And there goes the poster.
And coincidentally, when this happens, Polaris warns Jessie that something huge is going to happen. They guide her for the first time in over a decade to the oldest house and lead her to where the service weapon is, finally killing the failed director in the eyes of the board. And in this something unexpected happens. And that is that Dylan gets infected by the HISS. So Jessie has to prevent the HISS in the hands of Dylan to destroy the FBC headquarters. And we already know what happens. Jessie seems to get infected by the HISS when Hedron is destroyed, but helped with her connection to the Ocean View Motel and Casino, she manages to find herself. Polaris and Hedron are now one being. With this new power, she goes to meet her possessed brother and ends up closing the projector portal. Finally, she becomes the director of the FBC. A small section to try to see the events of Control from the point of view of Trench and Darling. When they first hiked on slide 36, Trench commented that he heard something. Darling did not. But on the third hike, Darling met an alien, was amazed by it, and began to hear things as well. Trench sensed the change in Darling. Darling sensed the change in Trench. Trench approved the production of the HRA, but began to notice the Hedron resonance in the people carrying it. He saw the people as infected, which led him to activate the HISS slide. The disturbing thing is that both are a mirror of each other. Darling got infected with Hedron, then perceived the HISS infection in Trench, a resonance like a virus. But the HRAs are practically the same. The difference is that at the end of the events of the game, the staff gladly accepted the implementation of a resonance in their bodies. And the entity that prevailed over the resonance of Hedron and HISS is the board.
Slide escape 36 was where Hedron stopped the spread of another. It's terrifying. It really is. It's another source of resonance. Trench was exposed to this other. It will now spread. I've done everything I can to stop the Hedron resonance amplifiers. I don't know if it'll make a difference. I won't be here when it happens. I should have told him anymore.
And with this, we see the sick plan of the board. The HISS had a connection with this entity from the beginning. This was built through the slide that contains Polaris, a slide that, as we studied, has all the characteristics of the HISS: the red color, deep marks in the red sand caused by a resonance that can destroy the bodies of the organic beings that step on that place. How this connection came to exist remains for the moment as a complete mystery. but I am inclined that the board being connected with the oldest house, a place of power, are everywhere at all times, facilitating their communication with Polaris. Let's not forget that one of the slides is called the house. It should be added that there is a possibility that all the slides are connected to each other, but the truth is that this is impossible to discern. Also, we know exaggeratedly little about the board. If they really have such a deep relationship with the World Tree, it means that they not only exist in one reality, but it is possible that they exist in all realities, existing in the past, present, and future through the roots of the tree that surround the 9 worlds, as well as the 4 cosmic directions. The board is connected with the oldest house, a place of power. They are everywhere at all times, facilitating their communication with Polaris. Let's not forget that one of the slides is called the house. The HISS is Jesse from a dimension or future where she goes crazy for not reaching his brother. This version is already connected to the board. For this, I want to make it clear that personally, I believe that the particular characteristics of the oldest house have been inherited by the board. I believe that just as Jesse can possess Oops, the board has possessed the oldest house, which emphasizes his previous message that they are everywhere and at all times, an entity that is beyond our imagination. The 5 pillars, as well as Hedron Polaris, control this version of Jesse. But eventually there has to come a breaking point. This turning point comes at the very moment when the brothers access Slidescape 36. Jesse asks Hedron Polaris for help, and this entity accepts to enter them. A great part of Hedron's power, as well as of the 5 pillars, ends up in the children, but they only potentiate the special power that already exists in them. What happens next is that the HISS Jesse manages to regain some freedom from his captors and begins his revenge, destroying everything, the board, and his current mask known as the FBC. Parallel to this path of destruction follows his most longed desire, to be reunited with his brother. Unfortunately, the board is many steps ahead of them, and this entity plans the plot of this game. And this is the reason why the HISS is evolving along with Jesse, while Jesse is gaining powers through the OOPs on his way. The same happens vice versa. The HISS is corrupting OOPs. This is how many abilities that the HISS gains pass to Jesse, since in essence, they are the same being, divided only by circumstances and lack of understanding. From one side to the other, maybe Jesse should have listened more to Pope. Then when the HISS meets Dylan, she tries to be one with him, both in body and mind. But Polaris the board prevent the union from taking place in full totality, but they cannot prevent their enemy from possessing Dylan's body. And it is at this point that the HISS tries to warn this version of herself, Jesse, about the web that the board, the FBC, is placing around her. This also means that we are not talking at any time with Dylan, but with an amalgamation of the owner of this body and those of the resonance, her sister, something that is confirmed at the end of the game.
That's the object of power. I need to cleanse it. Salvador, the head of security. His team didn't stand a chance against the Hiss. No one here does. Okay, the TV. Another object of power going nuts. Here we go again. Okay, dealt with the TV.
The Ocean View Motel is a place of power, connecting everything, a dream. Everything happens in the dreamer's head, which means that if the dreamer wishes with all his strength to be in a place, it will happen. After Hedron's death, the HRA stopped working. Jessie was forcibly taken to a dream state, away from her body. We must imagine the unconscious as her own dimension. Jessie had to return to her body. This could be achieved through a dimensionless place that connects everything, the motel. By this means, she accesses the right dimension and returns to her body. In Dylan's case, he went through the same. He had no control over his body. He became a puppet, but I will delve into this part later. Which I think also means that the real Dylan manages to communicate with this version of Jessie and understand the role that the two brothers have in this conspiracy. And with this knowledge, we understand the symbolism of the end of the game. The union of Jessie HISS with the board is for the true destruction of this lie. But unfortunately, Jessie wins, and with this, the game of the board advances to the next level. The HISS Jessie ceases to exist. They become complete puppets of the board, as shown in the DLC, The Foundation. And to make matters worse, this version of the HISS will not stop evolving, but not now because Jessie and this entity are one, but because the board and the HISS are now one, and will keep Jessie busy until the moment planned by them, whatever it is, starts to get underway. On the bright side, Pope is still wondering why the HISS continues to evolve, even with the portal to the burnt slidescape now closed. It may seem like a crazy theory, but suffice it to remember that the narrative trope where the hero ends up being the villain was recently used by creative director Sam Lake for Alan Wake 2, using the concept of the spiral. Alan ends up creating all the tragic events we live in the story, as well as the deaths of dozens of people being turned into the Taken, the creator god who builds the tragic stories of Nightingale, Gale, and Cynthia Weaver. But he is also the hero who ends up sacrificing himself to destroy that corrupted version of himself, both in the dark place and outside of it. His redemption, he was both a sinner and a redeemer. While Scratch was carrying his body when Saga found him, Alan was struggling to get out of the dark place, and throughout this journey, he doesn't realize that he was preventing himself from leaving the dark place. Not only that, but at the end of initiation, Alan allows himself to be possessed by the dark presence, allowing Scratch to leave. This feature of the spiral is nothing more than time and space games where you can encounter another version of yourself, possibly from another dimension, or yourself simply at another time in history. In the worst case, it can cause both versions to want to destroy each other. Cause and effect becomes a deadly game.
dead. Scratch tortured her until she couldn't stand it anymore. Until she broke. And all that time, she thought it was me. Scratch was still here. He hadn't escaped the dark place yet. He was scratching my edits out of return. No! I had seen this before. This was not Scratch. This was me. Caught in a loop. I had stopped myself trying to fix the manuscript. I was the one haunting Alice. It was always me. I killed her. This is the ritual to lead you on. Your friends will meet him when you're gone.
Recognizing these different versions of yourself becomes essential to overcome the most difficult trials, as well as defeating extra-dimensional beings who take advantage of seeing beyond the third dimension in which we live. Beings to whom the laws of time simply do not work. The concept of the spiral extends to some extent to control, so time dilation's paradoxes also apply. An example of this we have with the alarm in Alan Wake 2, where it sounded in 2023, but inside the oldest house, it sounds in the past, in 2019. To add salt to the wound, the name Jesse gives to Hedron is ironic, as Polaris refers to the star that marks the north. In the past, when there were no navigation systems, travelers used this star to guide them. But if we look at it from a metaphysical perspective, the star was a representation of the best version of themselves that would guide them without delay to their desired destination, whatever it was. There is also a detail that keeps me anxious about the future, and it has to do with North Moor. I don't think it is a coincidence that the first director linked to the board has the word North in his name. Is it because of this detail that he was chosen as the director? To leave no doubt about the connection between the board and Polaris? Something interesting is that Northmoor, at the end of his term, ended up becoming a living star, containing so much energy and heat that he had to be contained in a mini reactor. He was the first director to find the service weapon on a pedestal in front of the nail, a corrupted echo of Excalibur, King Arthur's sword. That's why in Take Control, it is mentioned how reality is being trampled, and Polaris is in a web of hypocrisy. This entity is using the symbolism, the importance of this star, to use Jesse as a puppet. For more proof, we have the following stanza of Take Control. It clearly refers to a failure to reunite with a loved one. It is mentioned how she succumbed to a frenzy of destruction. And it seems that this Jessie of this song made the wrong decision. She chose to rely on external supernatural powers when the power was already within herself. And Polaris, as well as the board, only deceived her. They used her and discarded her. In the end, this version of Jessie never had a chance to meet her brother again. and she will consume the world with fire and scarlet resonance. As you can read in the Vluspa, the Vala's prophecy, one of the oldest poems of the North. In the mysterious Vala, our prophets, seated somewhere unseen in the marvelous heaven, sings an awful song of the birth of gods and men, of the great Yggdrasil, or tree of existence, whose roots and branches extend through all regions of space, and concludes in the flames that devour all creation, and the new heavens and new earth rise beautifully green to receive the reign of Balder and of milder natures.
Odin's in rough shape. What happened to him?
These are our twilight years. There's darkness in the water. We have our little tricks. And so do you.
Unlike other cultures, the sun in Norse mythology is feminine, and the moon, Mani, is masculine. Returning to the Völuspá, we can read the following. The sun, sister of the moon, shone from the south, with her hand over the rim of heaven. The sun did not know yet where her home should be. The moon did not know yet what power he had. The sun and the moon are brothers. Both are placed in the sky. When the twilight of the gods arrives and the Ragnarok is approaching, the sun turns black while the earth sinks into the sea. Following the same thread, the Dadaist poem that Alan wrote also contains crumbs about a truth that transcends the craziest theories that Jesse may have about the true origin of HISS. The following verses are the most enlightening about the secret relationship between the HISS and Jesse.
The egg cracks and the truth will emerge out of you. You are home. You remind us of home, the last and greatest gas. The hole in your room is a hole in you. You came in, let you in through the hole in you. You have always been here, the only child. A copy of a copy of a copy. Orange peel. The picture is you holding the picture. When you hear this, you will know it. You're in.
The egg breaking and the truth emerging is the HISS's goal to show Jesse the truth. A miscellaneous fact is that the eggs in esoteric art represent the totality of the elements that conform one, but only until the egg is broken you will find your true essence. The closed shell means denial of your true form. To show her that she is home, the hole in her room is literally a hole in herself. Throughout the entire game, Dylan HISS never attacks Jesse. This one version of the HISS has more self-control. She doesn't want to unnecessarily hurt her sister, herself, but she never stops trying hard to show her the game she's in, how she's just a piece in a grand scheme. The verse "You came and we let you in through the hole in you" refers to this loop. The relationship that the HISS and Jesse have is a paradox. The verses "has always been here, the only child, and the image is you holding the image." It is emphasized with the next verse, "a copy of a copy of a copy." And to top it off, we have the last verse, before the entire poem repeats, "When you hear this, you will know you're in new you," which means already translated, when you Jesse hear this, when we are again the same person, the HISS and Jesse, both parties will remember what they once were, different sides of the same coin. The HISS will remember that she was Jesse, and Jesse will know that the HISS is herself.
This is not safe.
We found Polaris together with my sister when we were very small, in Ordinary, in the desert, through the door opened up by the slide projector. But she didn't help when Trench took me away. She didn't give me any powers. All the powers are my own powers. She didn't help when they locked me up for years.
After the song time for applause, we build you till nothing remains. The egg cracks and the truth will emerge out of you. You are home.
The Bureau brought the slide projector back here with me. And the Bureau did what the Bureau does. They used it. And they found... They opened the door up to the HISS. That's the only thing I can thank them for.
There. There it is. We stopped the Altered World event in Ordinary when we shut down the slide projector. And now the projector's here.
An earworm is a tune you can't stop humming in a dream. Baby, 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 yeah. Just plastic. So safe. Nothing to worry about. Funny. I welcomed the HISS. I let it in. To get rid of her. The HISS set me free. Polaris is using you. The Bureau is using you. You are a puppet. You can almost hear our words, but you forget.
If we shut off the slide projector, maybe that will stop the HISS.
Your regulations.
Maybe it's not too late for my brother.
You must see the truth for yourself, Jessie. Sister. The horrible truth about the Bureau. The HISS is the better option. Go to the Prime Candidate program in the containment sector. I have the keycard to get you there. Salvador wanted me to have it.
So, at the end of Control, the two pyramids try to be one, two promises that want to be fulfilled. Both versions want the same thing, twins finally being one. Both pyramids converge with Dylan at the center. The inverted pyramid is the Jessie we control, while the upward pyramid is the one for the Jessie HISS of the other dimension or different time. And to make matters more tragic, the HISS wishes to destroy the FBC, a wish that for a time Jessie considered, but discarded when she began to form allies and friends during her mission to defeat the HISS. In the end, Jessie feels comfortable in her role as the director. She has people who recognize her, a place to protect. But everything seems to indicate that what the HISS was trying to teach her was a failure, and she is in a spiral of self-destruction. And the board is by her side to keep whispering lies to her, as well as during the Foundation, which is all a ruse, to make the bond between them stronger. In actuality, Jessie is linked directly to the board through the nail. Both now resonate at the same frequency, and not only the director and the board, but anyone who has the HRA is linked to these extra-dimensional beings. The real beneficiary of the events of this game is the board.
Grow brighter around one constant. They revolve. Hedron is dead, but you're alive here in me. Maybe Hedron put you in our heads when we met her. Maybe you were always there. And she was just trying to teach me how to trigger you. Maybe I'll never understand. Maybe I don't need to. Trench was the first to be corrupted by the HISS. Slowly, over the years. His need for control only made it worse. It was Trench who took the projector to the nostalgia department. He opened the door to the HISS. Just like that. With Hedron dead, the HISS tried to corrupt me too. But I'm stronger than them. We're stronger. They're waiting. They'll try to stop us.
My sister had this dream. Bad dream. And the whole world was dreaming with her.
Dylan?
She'd convinced herself that she was awake. She's always been stubborn. I knew I had to end her dream. I had to wake her up. I had to rip down the poster she'd been staring at. Cut off her eyelids to make her see. To save her.
You are worth your time. The thunder song distorts you. Happiness comes, white pearl, but yellow and red.
I know he's still there somewhere. Locked inside. I know, because that's how it was for me. So I can only choose one. I thought I was done with these tests. Okay, let's review. This broken pillar is called the Nail. It was broken by something, and now the astral plane is bleeding into the foundation, which will destroy the oldest house, the bureau, and everyone inside. I need to find 4 locks, or keys, or whatever, to stop that from happening.
You may be wondering what proof I have of this. Well, we just have to see where this DLC ends. And the last question Jesse asks himself. With this, we have it clear. The HISS was used to lead Jesse to the 4 pillars hidden throughout the foundation. Each of these has an engraving, which lead Jesse to a strange circle, resembling the world. The change from triangle to circle I will explain later. For the moment, I will talk about the importance of the number of pillars present, and is that these represent 4 cosmic directions, 4 overlapping worlds, and each of these cosmic directions lead to a destination. All are connected in the tree. Each time the main shapes of alchemy are observed, the square, the triangle, and the circle. And finally, the last pillar is the nail. After defeating Marshall and cleaning the nail, 2 disturbing things happen.
There. Easy as pie. Fuck! But that's the last one. I fixed it, didn't I?
The first is that the nail starts to generate a field that can alter the neurological processes. And the second is that the frequency of the nail is the same as Polaris Jesse from this point on. These two things have big repercussions for the future of the staff locked in the oldest house. The board has a way of affecting the neurological processes of all staff who have the HRA. And I think that in case of extreme need, it can disable them. In addition to all this, it can dictate who enters and leaves the building, since the director's block cancellation is done through the service weapon. Also, the elevators become completely useless. And the most terrifying thing about this is that if my following theory is correct, the HRA are made of black rock, just like the prisons of the altered objects, and also the firewalls. If the frequency of the black rock is the same as that of the board, this means that the possibility of a hell inside the oldest house is more than likely.
Why would they need such a heavy door down here? This looks like the nail, only mini. A document. Is this in some kind of code? I can't read a word of it. I should take this back to Emily and tell her I got into Ash's secret lab.
My strongest evidence for this possibility can be found in Gene Gibbs' correspondence, in which he and several companions underwent a building change. And this change was thanks to the fire breaks, which are made of nothing more and nothing less than black rock. And with this event, another anomaly is observed. Gibbs ends up being possessed by the HISS and conveniently ends up being the custodian of the former's nail. Regarding the relationship between the board and the black rock, I still have one last thing to add, but it will be in the last part of this video. The board hand. The receptacle of his powers has the shape of a finger, a nail, and in Norse mythology, there is the Naglfar, which means nail ship. Other translations make references to corpses, as if the ship was built from the nails of dead people. And one of the best-known theories about the origin of the board is that it is constituted by the former directors of the FBC, as the father of Dr. Ash. There are several interesting things about this ship. For starters, is a vital piece in the Ragnarok. In one version is captained by Loki himself, one of the original members of the old gods of Asgard. The ship will bring with it the monsters, the others, and the goal of these beings is to destroy the world. As I mentioned before, Northmore is part of the board's plan, as well as the service weapon. Both parts make Surtur a fire giant, key piece of the Ragnarok. The fire giant carries his fire sword and will consume the world in flames. This being lives in Niflheim, and the sun is symbolic of this place. Northmore is the model on which Jessie is built as a director, forcing her to bond with as many OOPs as she can and become the reincarnation of Hellfire on Earth. Now begin to make more sense. Dylan's dreams. The first one we have is when we complete control. The images in the dream, we see the HISS consuming all New York, the world in flames, while in another image, we see a frozen land. I think these images are confirming the Ragnarok. And in Alan Wake 2, in his last DLC, Estevez has a brief encounter with Dylan. This brief meeting confirms several of the things I mentioned previously. First is that during control, Jesse believes he is talking to his brother, but this is completely incorrect. Dylan's consciousness is still buried. During this time, Dylan was talking to Jesse HISS, and this version of his sister warns him about what in the future is going to happen, warns him about the board.
Yeah, this looks completely normal. Here goes nothing. I'm trusting you. Huh. That wasn't so... Ah! Shit. There is definitely something wrong with this coffee. I knew I could count on you.
Have you ever noticed that our names, Jesse, Dylan, they could be girls' names, boys' names, could be anything. Don't you find that weird? I find that weird.
Maybe I can learn more about the HISS from him. Can we talk?
I just had an interesting dream.
Shit.
That's fascinating, but let's talk about the HISS for a change, yeah?
This dream was about the HISS.
Best I'm gonna get.
In my dream, the HISS had broken free of this prison, this house. I'd set it free. And the president himself was there to welcome us. He was the first one to take the HISS in. Spread the word. At first, many people thought it was horrifying. That he was horrifying. But also, many people who heard his words wanted to welcome the HISS in. And slowly, more and more of them came around until the whole world was brought together by the HISS. It was wonderful.
Okay, thanks for sharing that.
For the record, that will never happen. Not as long as I'm alive.
And from Dylan's words, I theorize that there is a reason why Jesse HISS never allowed the real Dylan to meet with his sister. The exact words Dylan says is, "I can't return and tell Jesse I tried. I really did." In both dreams, he keeps opening his eyes over and over again, and each time he does, only heartbreaking images are shown, the world as we know it destroying, changing. And the point of origin is Dylan, awakening from his dream, this god, who will define the future of the world through his vision. So meeting with her sister in the near future will only bring misfortune. It should not happen for any reason.
Darker than the darkest void. What could be better?
What the hell? Have you ever seen anything like this? isn't the government.
Hello, sister. I would like to tell you about a dream I had.
A conspiracy within a conspiracy. How can one expose a lie when the truth exists beyond our wildest imagination? Who can ever truly know how deep the rabbit hole goes in Night Springs?
Dark Triangle Coffee is a fast-growing company with ambitions to sweep the nation and eventually the globe with our out-of-this-world beverages. Drawn by our coffee's distinctive flavor and our unique beans, people are rushing to join the Dark Triangle movement. The company's mission statement is simple: to drink the truth
There.
is to become
That's what we need.
one.
Password
Our
is
financial and
truth.
spiritual growth
Now
has
we
been
can-
accelerating at speeds previously
Hey,
unknown
what
to
is-
humanity.
Something is...
Soon everyone will be
Something is... in my head. Please, you need to bring me. Please, no, please, Lord.
It is a good time to mention two interesting facts surrounding Dylan. The first is that for much of his life at the Bureau, his home was the panopticon. The main quality of this prison, invented by Jeremy Bentham Daz, is that all residents of this place are observed at all times. But not only is this the reason why this design was chosen for the prison, but it refers to the main quality of Dylan, that of being an observer. And the second fact is that his cell is nothing more and less than a giant HRA, which means that at all times Dylan is in the same frequency as the board, the Nail, Jesse, and Polaris, which means that this is the reason why he has not woken up. In the end, the board knows that he will meet with both brothers in the future. Without a doubt, the story of both brothers is equally tragic. The soul of Dylan is an eye of fire, or a mirror of fire, in which God has revealed himself. The primal state of this eye is in fire, and fire is its life. If this fire is not abandoned, it will know nothing but anger, burning desire, and hunger. At the intersection of two worlds, the eye of Dylan, of man, and the eye of God cross their gaze and merge into a transparency that rises in the center like lightning. There is a reason why the Polaris mantra is becoming more and more circular, and it has to do with the pyramids. There is a saying in alchemy that says, "Make of man and woman a circle, insert it in a square, put it in a triangle, and circumscribe a circumference by the vertices of the triangle." You will thus obtain the philosopher's stone, the androgynous being, the square around the circle meant for them, that from a mere body one must separate the four elements. The transformation of the square into a triangle teaches that one must extract the spirit, the body, and the soul. And this is the most important part. These three parts will appear briefly in three colors before the rubrification. To the body corresponds the saturnal black, to the spirit the watery lunar white, and to the soul the vaporous citrine color. When the triangle reaches its highest perfection, it must be transformed into a circle, that is, into an immutable red. In this operation, the female is inverted into the male, and both become one. Thus, Dylan apologizes to this version of Jesse, as well as to the Jesse of this reality, for not continuing to sleep, for when he awakens, the eye of God will arise and judge the world that the triangle shows him. and those who seemed opposites will become one again, thus marking the coming end of the world and the beginning of the reign of the blessed.
The Ocean View Motel is a dimensional intersection. The doors from the lobby can lead anywhere, but I didn't end up in the lobby this time, which was definitely unusual. Panopticon? But the Panopticon is at headquarters. Yeah.
I'm outside in a forest. The sun is shining. Birds are calling. I feel dirt beneath my feet. A breeze. Everything smells like green. I'm not here. I'm in a forest. Sunlight on my face. Birds are flying past. Leaves rustle in the wind. In a forest. Not here. Sunlight. Trees are everywhere. A field of flowers. Not here. Not here. Not here. I'm in a forest. The sun is shining. I'm outside in a forest. The sun is shining. Birds are flying. My feet, a breeze. Everything smells like green. I'm not here. I'm in a forest. Sunlight on my face. Birds are flying past. Leaves rustle in the wind. In a forest. Not here. Sunlight. Trees are everywhere. A field of flowers. Not here. Not here. Not here. I'm in a forest. The sun is shining. I'm outside in a forest. The sun is shining. Birds are calling. I feel dirt beneath my feet. A breeze. Everything smells like green. I'm not here. I'm in a forest. Sunlight on my face. Birds are flying past. Leaves rustle in the wind. In a forest. Not here. Sunlight. Trees are...
I'm Agent Kieran Estevez, Federal Bureau of Control. Identify yourself.
It's quiet.
Who are you?
It's been a long time since I've seen anyone.
There's a sign over there for the Panopticon. The Panopticon's only in New York, in HQ. Is this the oldest house?
I think that's where I am.
So you are inside the oldest house. Is anyone else alive?
I can't.
This is a waste of time. This is an FBC containment unit. Why is the Bureau detaining you?
I'm where I belong.
Everyone I meet here is either a painting or a paracriminal. Hey, this is important. FBC headquarters went dark 4 years ago. What exactly happened in there?
We were attacked. No, no, not again. Not yet. No, 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 no.
Hey, stay with me. Stay with me.
Okay.
What attacked the oldest house? I need to know.
Something's changing. Outside. Can you feel it? I can hear it. It's getting worse. You can't stay, can you?
Hold on. The full will intention. I need to know if it could...
Tell Jesse I tried. I really did.